I was originally going to do a video on just labeling to make it easier for you guys to do installs, make sure it debugs, and make sure it's easier to maintain that. But what I heard recently from a friend of mine who helped this guy rig his boat, the guy was using the same color wire for both power and ground. And my buddy said, don't you want to label those? I said, oh, no, I don't need to label those. And guess what happened? Well, he obviously got ground and positive crossed, and what happened is it ended up, as soon as he switched it on, the boat started smoking, and the wires started melting, and things like that started going on and on and on. And next thing you know it, by the time he got it all shut back down, he caused about $6,000 to rewire his boat completely. You know, that's the console, the whole boat. So I'm going to try to show you guys a few things that I do to help you avoid a very, very expensive mistake like that. These are simple things to do, but you know, it just takes a little extra time to not rush and get the right equipment, right parts and materials, and then do it right the first time, not have to go pay somebody a significant amount of money to fix your problem. Okay, you don't really want to do that. So, all right, so let's go out in the garage and I'll show you some of the wires I'm using, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm out here in the garage now. I'm going to show you some of the wire that I use. This is the power wiring. If you looked at any of my videos about the power wiring, this is normally what I use. You'll see that this is a black wire here and a red wire. Positive, ground, okay? Very clear, very easy to do, very easy to repeat that, okay? This, if you have individual wires, okay, sometimes like for example, you may have pre-bought stuff without knowing about this. Is really nice jacketed stuff. This stuff, by the way, is a lot easier to pull with the double jack, and I don't like that. But you can also buy your wire in spools like this. These are probably 50-foot spools, 100-foot spools. This is the same wire that's inside of this cable here, but again, black and red. Okay, very important. Follow that color coding convention. All right. So let's go back and let me show you some of the other wire I use. Okay. All right. So these are smaller gauges. Okay. So if you're running, say, a small temporary or small power line somewhere, you may only require something like this 16 gauge, or you may require something like this 10 gauge. Okay. You know, I've also got different size ground wires here. A lot of times I'll use this, something like this wire here, for running your what are called the ground wires for the active target module or the live scope module. That's called a bonding wire. I'll do that as well. But the other thing I will do, and I'll show you why in a moment, is at the end of these cables, when I terminate them, okay, I will take and use heat shrink. Okay, I use multiple different sizes of heat shrink. You see all this heat shrink I got up here, different sizes, but you'll see it's all red and black. Okay, red and black, red and black. Okay, and we go up here. I have one extra color here. I have clear, and I have clear heat shrink on the wake up wires and things like that. So these yellow wires over here are the wake up wires that I use to extend it with. For that, again, that's the active target modules, the network modules, things like that, the S3100 module as well. So that's another way I carry this color coding across. But let me show you the real reason, okay? So the real reason that I use that, this is my box, some of my crimp-ons, but you'll see that those crimp-ons, they come in different colors depending on size, okay? So this is like an 18 to 22 size. This is a 14-16. This is a 10 to 12. And this one is an 8 gauge wire. You'll see that the 8s and the 18-22 are same color pretty much. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep these on there without color coding them as well. So you have your wire colored, you use the heat shrink on the ends to color code these. It makes life so much simpler for both yourself when you're rigging and also if you ever have to replace anything, or you have other users, or you sell your boat. So those are the connectors, and you can see why. Again, color coding, keeping it simple, keep your colors simple. I also use this larger heat shrink here, and what I will do is I'll take either this size here, which is the 1-inch stuff, either in red or in black, okay? And when I terminate this wire here, so that I know which one is which, I'll use the heat shrink around this area right here. And that way I can just look at the cable and say, okay, that's the red one. I go to the other end of it, and that's red as well, so I know I got the same cable. Again, you don't cross cables that way. Again, something simple. Now, on the recent boat I did, that Skeeter I had to use a 3-conductor wire for the bow switch for the active target module. And this one it's a black, green, and white wire, which is more like an AC type wiring. But what I use on that is I still keep my black as ground, always keep it as ground. I use the white for my positive, so that would be the equivalent of the red, okay? But when I terminate it, I'll put red heat shrink on it. This green is what I'll use for the yellow, or the wake-up wire, okay? So that's the color coding I use for the wiring. Again, it's simple if you just buy the wire in the right colors, like the wire over there, the wire over here, or the wire over there. Just keep your wires color coded. All right, let's try this again. I screwed it last time. Let's look at cable labels. Okay, we just finished talking about color coding the wires. Really great thing to do. Makes it pretty obvious. Now let's talk about cable labels and why you'd want to use a cable label. Basically, cable labels are basically going to let you put the name and where that cable goes on the cable itself. So if you pick it up or look at it, you know exactly where that cable should be. Or say, for example, you take your units off in the wintertime, or you take it off every night at the hotel there, or even during, when you come back home, if you take your units off, you need to put them back on. You have the cable labels there. You can immediately look at the label on there and say, oh, that's where it goes. Or for example, if you've blown a fuse, you either label in your fuse block, okay, or you have the cable labels on the cables near that. So that way it'll make it a lot simpler to maintain your system, and also to put things back and forth if you need to, okay. So over the years, I've used multiple different label types. I tried these a little bit. These are like little dots. They didn't work very well at all, because these little dots basically don't conform to the cables. They fall off really easy, so I wouldn't even waste my time anymore with these things. I just keep them around for grins. But I've also in the past, originally I started with the original electrician style cable labels. They're fabric, and what they are is they are individual letters, and you just wrap around anything. The problem with that is that if you have a lot of C's, or you have a lot of single letters or numbers, you're eventually going to run out of that, and you might have to get 2 or 3 books of those just to complete your boat install, okay? That's why I like these computer generated sheets, which is, let's see, this is what they look like, okay? I know you can't see it, okay? But this, if you look at this sheet right here, I put this sheet through the printer backwards one day, upside down, so you can start to see these little perforations and angles there. It may not come out, but you can see how it's curled up. Those are all your cable labels, okay? This is an easier way to see it. These are colored labels. Initially, I wanted to use different colors. And the neat thing about that is it would have let me say, okay, blue would have been my sonar cables, okay? So that's how these cables look on the sheets. We've got yellows, reds. Yellows would have been Ethernet. Red would be obviously power. Green probably going to be NEMA, that type of stuff. But I found out that over the course of using these things, that on a boat you might have like 3 or 4 sonars, transducers. So you only do partial sheet on this. Now I'm going to do what are you going to do with the rest of the sheet? So I just found it's a lot more efficient to use a white sheet like this one, okay? And what I do is I have a computer file, and that file, and this is one that's just printed on just paper, just as a test print. And so what I do is I come in, I do all the whole boat, okay? For my boat, for example, I got so much stuff on it. I've got 3 sheets of this. And on that Camus and on the Vexes I've done, those had a lot of units as well, so I had 3 sheets on those also. But if you look at the way these are labeled, okay, I got basically the first part of this label is like con or bow, obviously console or bow. You could call helm or bow or whatever you want to, whatever will designate the position in the boat, okay? That's aft, you know, center section, aft, stern, whatever. Doesn't really matter, but be consistent and know what you're doing. Or as knowing, excuse me, remember how you labeled it. That's all I can say, okay? And then what I do is if I have a single console unit, I don't need to put a designator of the position here, okay? So for example, this one is just console, and that's the NEMA. So now, if the cable that has this label on it, I know it's a console cable, that's a NEMA cable, okay? So fairly easy. So, but again, keep a standard naming convention. I use left and right. I mean, you could use port and starboard for console units. For the bow unit, I typically use upper and lower. If we have 3 units up there, it's gonna be upper, lower left, lower right. Okay, that way you know exactly what the position is. And the problem is that if you pull your units off a lot and you got all these cables sitting there, you don't know which one goes where, okay? And a lot of times you need to make sure they're going in the right places, okay? Especially if you got, say, 2 network connections on one unit and only one on another, and you don't know what's what. This is a real sheet, partial sheet. Okay, you can see where labels have been pulled off. Still labels are still there, okay? So the way these labels go on the cable, you take this portion here. So we'll take this label right here. So what I'll do is I'll take this portion of the label, okay? I'll wrap it around the wire, so it goes wrapped around the wire, and then I'll fold this portion back on top of the other one so that the printing is external. So basically you've got the adhesive on the back side pushed together, and that'll give me the labeling portion on both sides of this label. Makes it a lot easier to pick it. So, and the nice thing is these labels are waterproof, and I use a laser to print them with, so it's pretty waterproof. I've got labels on my boat that are about four years old now. They still look like brand new, although they will tear occasionally if you're rough on them. And I've pulled cables with these labels on it, and sometimes they don't make it through, sometimes they do make it through. So, all right, so that's the primary one. Let me show you give me the part number on that. There it is. There's your part number, okay? Hopefully you can see that. Oops. So that's the part number. That's from Amazon. And then what you do is once you get the labels, then you can go and search for the template online. Grab the template. I use Microsoft Word, but I'm sure there's other flavors of that. But a template of that would work also in the Google Office, Open Office. Okay. The other thing I do is that I've also got another set of labels, and it's, again, hard to see this. These cable labels will wrap around a certain cable size, which is really made for like a, say an internet cable, which is an RJ45 style cable. So there's a certain cable diameter it's used to do. So you got various different cable diameters for the boat stuff. These work pretty nice. What you do is you print in this area right here in the blue area, okay? And then what you do is then you wrap the clear around the blue. The problem, what I've seen with it, and I'll sort of video on a little bit on this page, but the end of this will actually peel up a little bit. I haven't had any peeling issues with that other type label. So this is nice. The other thing. The other thing what you want to do, okay, is when you get your labels, you want to probably do a test print with it. So what I do is I write on the packaging where I put this, what the orientation is, and where it goes in there. Okay. So for example, this one goes in the feeder tray on my printer. Okay. It goes up, and it goes to the label first. So that would mean when I put it in the tray and the feeder, it goes in this way because my feeder's over right here. and this is the up, and that's the labels end, okay? So you just be very, very careful, otherwise you'll end up wasting a lot of labels. Trust me, it happens. So, in other words, this is another one. This is face down in the regular tray, okay? So, okay. The nice thing about those other cables, it doesn't really matter the orientation because the sheet's symmetrical, which is really, really handy. Okay, so covered enough about labeling. Oh, yeah, one thing about cable labels. If you're, say, for example, redoing your batteries, what I do is that I'll take these tags that are basically for plants. You know, they come with these little strings so you can put them around your plant. Makes it kind of pretty and all that other stuff. But I just cut the string off. I use a small tie wrap. I'll take a permanent marker, mark on this, say battery number 1, positive terminal, boom. And now just label those cables temporarily. Yes, I do that when I pull things apart because sometimes I don't get right back to it immediately and remember everything where it goes. And it also minimizes your mistakes. The last thing you want to do is hook your batteries back up and you got the polarity wrong. You're missing a ground. Like for example, in the past I have not done that on my old boat. I forgot to rehook up the ground for the jack plate. Okay, so everything worked great. You know, live well pumps, things like that worked, but my jack plate wouldn't work. I'm going, what's going on? I found a spare ground wire hanging around, and that's why you do that. And I also, the other trick I do is I take a tie wrap as I pull them off the battery terminal, tie them all together. Okay, again, another one of those little simple things to do. Takes a little, you know, a few extra seconds to be honest, to do it, but it will save you a lot of headache. Okay, so that's the second item. Now the third item that I find is very important. My background is again electronics and computers. So what I do is I have a voltmeter. This is the voltmeter I used for years. It finally gave up the ghost because I left the battery in there too long, and of course they corrode. But the neat thing about this is this is a multimeter. Okay, you can pick it up at a hardware store, get it on Amazon for probably $10. Well, at least it was $10 before. It might be $15 now. Who knows? But you put it on the ohm scale, and you can use it to check for grounds, check to make sure you have continuity. In other words, what continuity is this end of the wire is connected to that end of the wire. And if you say you got your ground connected to your positive, you got a problem. Now you got to locate where that is. Okay, so this is a good and handy dandy meter. It'll also run as a voltmeter. I do have some stories about these, but I won't share them with you right now. But anyway, it'll run just make sure if you're measuring voltage and say you're measuring trolling motor battery, it's 36 volts, 24 or 36 volts usually. Make sure you're on the right scale. If you're on the 12 volt scale or 20 volt scale and you're reading a 36 volt battery, it's not going to read. Okay, make sure you got it on the right scale. All right. So what I replaced that meter with is this Klein. Okay, comes in a nice package, lots of probes and stuff. So this is an upgraded version of that meter. Okay, it's probably about, I don't know, is it roughly $50. So if you're just doing this one time, that El Cheapo meter, like I say, that worked really well for years for me. So this is another option. The other thing for you car guys, okay, if you got one of these testers, okay, let me get it out of the package here. Ugh, there we go. And it's this Ancel circuit probe. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, now the neat thing about this, you hook it up to your battery with these two plugs. Okay, you take the probe, and the nice thing is a long enough cable. You can actually check for ground faults. You can check for shorts. You can do a lot with this probe. Okay. The neat thing is that what you're really aiming for when you get done with your wiring is you want to make sure that if you have a positive lead, it doesn't have any continuity towards ground. Okay, positive should be positive and isolated to itself. Okay, it needs to be positive on one end, positive on the other end. They have to be connected together, but they better not be connected to the ground. And same thing with the ground. The ground should never be connected to the positive. Okay, and that was the problem with that boat that I mentioned earlier. Again, you want to make sure, just take a few extra minutes and, you know, just double check your work. The labeling will help you. Obviously the color coding, you know, is the start of the thing, and heat shrinking with color coded, and then doing your testing. So those 4 items will help you avoid a possible, you know, up to $6,000 or more error in your boat, where you have to take it out to somebody and have them fully rewire your boat because you didn't take 5 extra minutes to do something right. Okay, so anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, if you got any more suggestions of what other things that you guys do, please, you know, add them in the comments. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe. I've got more stuff like this coming. Hopefully I get back on the water soon as I get my boat back up from North Carolina. Just haven't been able to do any long distance driving yet. So anyway, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.